This is a presentation of Blakesley Sports Media. Welcome to BSM Live. Here's your host, Stephen Blakesley.
Well, we want to welcome you in here to this episode of Blakesley Sports Media Live, and yet again another episode where I'm very grateful to have a really good guest on the show today. We'll be hearing from Jagger Jones, the grandson of the Indy 500 winning Parnelli Jones, to hear what he has to say about his plans for the 2020 season. He was a driver after 2019 where I had a lot of questions about what is this driver going to be doing? And, you know, you can sit around and wonder, or I'm lucky enough to be able to ask him. So we get to hear from Jagger Jones today after finishing second in the 2019 NASCAR K&N Pro Series West points. So really looking forward to bringing you guys that interview tonight here on Blakesley Sports Media Live, part of the shorttracklive.com network. And we've been having a lot of fun and interesting content the last couple weeks. Lots of things to talk about and to go over the last couple weeks. Lots of progress in the motorsports world when it comes to the coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're going to be talking a lot about that here on tonight's program. If you're starting to log on, we'd like you to comment with where you're tuning in from. And also, this go around, I want to know, do you think that we should be racing in the state of California? And that's with or without fans. Just, do you think we should be racing in the state of California? So I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say on that. So please leave a comment with what you think we should do during this coronavirus pandemic. There are some breaking news stories regarding that we're going to dive into here on Blakesley Sports Media Live. But once again, as people start to log on, please comment with where you're tuning in from and also what you think we should do here during this coronavirus pandemic. So take this opportunity to remind you guys that our new website, shorttracklive.com, is up and running. And shorttracklive.com, we've been trying to post news stories about West Coast motorsports news, and I have been completely bowled over by the results we've had on there. Yesterday was beyond any expectation I have. Of course, the big news story yesterday was that Madera Speedway has a plan in place with local officials for a phased reopening, and that headline kind of drove the website to heights that really exceeded my expectations. So I can't wait to see, once we're racing, the kind of numbers we're going to have. Maybe we can get over 1,000 viewers a day on the website. So it's been a pretty exciting week for us at shorttracklive.com. Want to thank everybody that's helped me set that website up, all the contributors that we have. Jason Galvin from Madera Speedway, MAV TV, the NHRA. He does a lot of cool stuff. And our other contributor, J.J. Cox from Prodigy Race Promotions. He's an announcer, PR guy extraordinaire. I've had some really cool people helping me. And, you know, right now with the coronavirus pandemic, the racing businesses aren't necessarily capable of sponsoring a website, and advertising dollars are going to be a long view for us. So the way that you can really help us out is, if you're interested in supporting shorttracklive.com, you can purchase our merchandise, which is available online now. We have this lightning print, and then we also have a vertical stacked print. So we have two different options for you to pick from. And the stacked print is also available in a hoodie, although I don't know if hoodies are a real big concern right now. Maybe if we get back to racing soon, you can wear those at night. But I really like this lightning print. And so if you're interested in supporting our website, that's the number one way that you can do so, at shorttracklive.com. So our biggest piece of content over the last 2 weeks, we've been trying to rank drivers from our favorite series in the state of California. And this week, we started ranking drivers in the micro sprints. We started on Thursday with drivers number 10, number 9, and number 8. And it contained some of the all-time greatest micro sprint drivers in the state of California history, such as number 10, TJ Smith, number 9, number 9, Jake Hagopian, and number 8, Michael Facino. And the biggest thing that impacted Hagopian and Facino is they did not run very many races in 2019. They were busy with sprint car racing and their involvement in the industry of micro sprints. So arguably, if you go to the pits, those are the two drivers that you know have the best shot to win. So it's a little controversial for us having them outside the top 5. But I think the drivers that we have from our 6 ballots that were submitted from industry insiders, I think these ballots hit this thing right on the head. And let's dive into that ranking right now with the driver that's going to rank number 7th in the state of California in micro sprint racing. That's Brandon Carey, the 2016 Delta Speedway non-wing and Super 600 champion, and had a pretty steady season. He had 3 wins at Delta in the very tough non-wing points competition there. A couple big runner-up finishes at the Delta Turkey Bowl and the Lemoore Cal Cup. Probably the big run for him, he swept the Lonnie Kaiser Memorial at Dixon that had 32 cars in the pits. So Brandon Carey is going to rank number 7 in the state. And then we slide over to number 6 in the state of California. The driver out of Bakersfield, Brody Fusen, who had a very good September. And, you know, that's the other thing is we're a little bit biased to late season performances when you try to look back in your memory bank to who ran the best. You really end up looking at late season performances. Well, Brody Fusen, winner of the Mark Hagopian Memorial in September, following week set a new track record. So that was a pretty good run for the youngster. Next driver on our list, number 5 in the state of California, number 5. And a young man that won 17 main events in restricted competition in the state of California, Gage Garcia out of Lemoore, California, the 2019 California Speed Week champion, coming in at number 5. And rounding out our rankings for today, coming in at number 4, Jade Abadizian out of Clovis, California, with 11 main event victories across the country, including the Clay Cup up at Deming, Washington. All kinds of big success for her, just tons of big wins. Winner of the Mark Hagopian Memorial in the restricted cars, winner of the Delta round for the Speed Week at Delta Speedway. Also won both the Plaza Park and Lemoore Raceway track championships. And this young lady is going to rank number 4 in the state of California in micro sprint racing. So really awesome to see these youngsters. Next Tuesday, we're going to reveal our top 3. And we're also going to have an interview and a conversation right here on Blakesley Sports Media Live with JJ Cox, who's been my contributor for all this stuff with our rankings. And we're going to talk about how these drivers ranked and what we think the outlook is for 2020 in micro sprint racing. So big hello to Brad Young, who says we should be racing. John Sproul says he'd like to race. My dad, Bob Blakesley, says, let's race. Delms Fernandez says, scheduling is going to be a nightmare. Let's go racing. Jerm Smith would love to see some micro sprints up here at Mountain Valley Raceway. Well, the micro sprints, I love micros. So, anything we can do to get micros out there I'm all ears for it. So anyway, that's a good look at what we're up to on shorttracklive.com. You can go there now and see more about what we're up to. We also have the articles about the Placerville reopening for this weekend for a big open practice. They're the only fairground track in California that's been awarded a full open test and tune, and all the details about how you can participate, what the rules are, is available at shorttracklive.com. So that was kind of the biggest news this week was Placerville and Madera starting to have some testing at fairground tracks. So that's our big breaking news this weekend here in the state of California. With that, we want to go to our very special interview, a very cool guest for me to have on the program. A driver that impressed me a lot in 2019, Jagger Jones. And I think he's in for a big 2020, but he goes into 2020 with a big question mark of what's he going to do after running second in the K&N Pro Series West, the 2019 Rookie of the Year, and the grandson of the Indy 500 great Parnelli Jones. And he joins us here on Blakesley Sports Media Live. On the shorttracklive.com hotline is Jagger Jones, the 2019 NASCAR K&N Pro Series West runner-up. And Jagger, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for having me on.
So let's start off right away with a question a lot of us probably have about your racing career. So with your grandfather Parnelli, of course, having the open wheel background, and your family has such a varied background with sports car racing and open wheel racing and off-road racing, how did you end up on the stock car side as a career, and what was kind of your path to ending up at the K&N level?
So yeah, I first got into racing personally. I mean, obviously I grew up around the racetrack with my dad and my grandpa, watching them race and really looking up to them as heroes in my life, especially as the younger self of me, just looking up to them and being one day. It wasn't a matter of if I wanted to be a race car driver. In my mind, it was when I was going to be out there on the track racing. And I grew up playing, when I was younger, playing a lot of ball sports, just trying to be just a normal, well-rounded kid. And then it wasn't until I was about 9 years old till I got into racing. And I started racing go-karts out here in Phoenix, where I live, and it kind of just took off from there. I began racing go-karts on road courses all around the U.S. I went and won the national championship in the U.S. in 2014. So only about 6 years ago, when I think I was 12 years old then. And that actually went and won me a trip over to go race in Europe and represent the United States. So I was like racing in Europe, fully on board and fully like open wheel minded in that point in my life when I was about 14, 15 years old. And I was really focusing on maybe going and doing some races in Europe in the Formula Car Series, or coming back to the US and doing some of the road to Indy races. And we were kind of deciding what we were going to do for the following year. And my dad said, let's go test a legend car. One of my buddies knows a lot over there at Las Vegas Motor Speedway at the Bull Ring. And I went and did that. And I loved the legend car. I went and raced that next weekend there out at the Bull Ring. And I really loved the oval racing. And it kind of just fell right into my hand. And I was racing a late model the next year at Irwindale. So that really was what sparked me on my NASCAR stock car track. But obviously my dad even raced a bunch of stock car races later in his career. So, and also with my grandpa, he raced a bunch of stock car races from Riverside to even some oval stock car races. So it wasn't something foreign to my family, even though when you think of the Jones family name, you think more of the IndyCar and open wheel side of things with my grandpa and even my dad doing a lot of that. So NASCAR wasn't something too unusual for us. I mean, I feel like our family is pretty involved in all sorts of motorsports, and the whole NASCAR series really sparked me, and I really enjoyed it once I first got into that kind of racing.
Yeah, your family has been a part of a little bit of everything, and it seemed like things escalated really quickly for you in 2019, of course, getting into the West Series, and really, in my opinion, having a really outstanding season. How did the performance of 2019 match up with your expectations going into the year?
Yeah, I think our expectations, or at least my expectations going in the year, were pretty spot on with how the season went. I mean, right out of the gate, we had a really good start in Vegas. We almost won there. It was a pretty heartbreaking night for me personally, but overall, it was still a solid performance, finishing second, as much as I'd like to win out there in the dirt track. So then once we got onto the ovals and the pavement, like the usual races I ran, we kind of just worked our way and made ourselves better and better every week. We started out finishing fourth, third, right there for the win. We just needed a little bit more early in the year. And we kept working on that. And then by the end of the year, going to tracks like Meridian, Roseville, by the end of the season, we were just about fighting for the wins, if not the ones to be every week. And that's basically what my goals were going into the season, to be in contention for multiple wins and go out there and at least win one or two races, and go out and win Rookie of the Year, which we did, which was a big accomplishment for us as a team, and then be right there in points, which we ended up second. So it was definitely a solid year for us, and solid year for me, not just in the results page of things, but in the experience page. I think from beginning into the end of the season, as a driver, I learned so much, moving around and driving at so many different tracks that I've never been to, and also just learning how to drive a bigger full-size bodied stock car, where that was kind of a new experience for me last year. So in both those, in the results and experience level, I think it was a great year for me last year.
So we're on the phone with Jagger Jones as he prepares for the 2020 racing season once we do get back underway. And the big question right now, what do you have in store for this year?
Yeah, for sure. That's obviously a big question. And it's been earlier this year, before all of this, I don't know what you'd call it, mess happened. We were still working on getting a program together. We were working on the sponsorship side of things, which was taking a little bit longer than expected. And really in my career, I feel like me and the team of people around me, we've kind of realized that at this point in my career, the best thing for me to do this year was to try to go out and run some more ARCA races and try to go do that on the East Coast and or the bigger ARCA series. It just didn't make too much sense to go run another year of West Series. I think the best thing for me would be trying to move up and trying to get my name out there more, where more racing is bigger out on the East Coast a little bit. And that's what we were focusing on, getting some races lined up with that. And then this whole Corona deal and racing kind of basically going to a halt really kind of stopped that for us and for everyone. Obviously there hasn't been a clear path still of when racing's resumed, but we're still working on getting some races lined up for this season, some ARCA races. I'm still 17, so I can't do all of the bigger ARCA races, or I can't do any of the bigger truck races yet. So I think this and next year to get some ARCA and maybe even some truck experience is the best bet for me, and that's what we're focusing on doing.
What does it say about the sport as a whole when you look at a lot of second and third generation drivers from big racing families like yourself and people like Brandon McReynolds, that even folks like you guys are still having to work really hard to figure out the funding side to try to make this thing work?
Yeah, for sure. It's no secret that racing is an expensive sport. It takes a full team of people, whether it's team owners, sponsors, your family. Someone's got to write the check out of the end of the day, like it or not. That's just how it is in the sport. And it definitely helps having a name and parents and a grandpa that has a lot of connections in the sport, which has been a huge help in my career up until this point. And even with or without that, it's still very tricky to put the funding together to go racing and be in the right situations to get yourself in the best car possible to go out and win races. And I think it's pretty known. That's pretty known in racing at this moment. And I think there's a lot of programs and things where I'd like to say I think there's a possibility that could change in the future, just the way things are going. NASCAR trying to make things more affordable, programs like even the diversity program, just helping fund kids racing. I think going in the future, I think it would be cool to try to put some deals together where it provides some more opportunities for kids. And obviously there's a lot of programs today doing that. And I think if we can have racing more of a more of a normalized sport from the beginning to the end, like you see kids playing football and at a young age, and it's more of a normal person sport, I think that would help our sport grow huge. But for me, at this time, it's obviously, like you said, it's hard to put that together, whether you're a big name or not. And we're just trying to do everything we can off the track to be in contention for me to go win races on the track.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I've heard that you've been doing some work with Jimmy Johnson on your career. Is that true?
Yes, Jimmy's been has been a friend of my dad since they were racing the Busch Series back then in the day, and I believe they even were friends even before that. And Jimmy's been helping me with my career and kind of being a mentor for me, and trying to help me position myself in my career, and also being a person where I can go to and talk to him for advice, and just really being a huge help and putting me in the best situations as possible. Like he really helped put a deal together for me 2 years ago to go run some races with Dale Jr. and his late model and stuff like that, and also showing me around the track and just introducing me to people, and like I said, just helping me position myself in my career and being a mentor to me. And it's cool to have someone, I mean, obviously it's incredible to have someone like Jimmy Johnson doing that for me in my career. And I mean, obviously he's the GOAT in my opinion, a 7-time champion of the sport. So it's super cool to have that connection and have him willing to help me.
So I'm sure you've seen that there's been some drivers throughout this pandemic that have gotten themselves into trouble with some of their personal conduct and things of that nature. And with you being surrounded by someone like Jimmy Johnson and representing a family like the Jones family, do you feel any added pressure that you have to represent yourself really well when you're surrounded by such high caliber people?
I don't think I feel extra pressure from it, because I think I've kind of had that from the beginning. Since the first moment I started racing up until this point, I don't think it's really changed too much. I mean, I've kind of always looked at it that way, and I've learned from my dad to act that way, because he was in the same situation his whole life, growing up as the son of Parnelli Jones and obviously advocating for his own racing career. So I've definitely grown up in a way where I'm not, it's hard the way to put this, but I've definitely grown up in the spotlight is what I'm trying to say. And I don't think there's any new pressure now, but it's obviously something you have to be care of your reputation, and how you act off the track definitely reflects what happens in your business life and your racing life. Like we've definitely seen a lot lately, and with the whole iRacing deal and all of that, just because I feel like it's kind of the iRacing deal that they're doing is kind of bridging the gap between personal and public racing life, and some mistakes have been made, obviously we've seen. And I just feel like growing up in the spotlight my whole life, and from even racing go-karts when people were just looking at us like I'm the grandson of Parnelli Jones, I have everything handed to me. And even though that wasn't the case, I just feel like growing up in that sense and being in the spotlight, like I said before, is just taught me to just be respectful and don't say things like that, and don't just be yourself as much as you can, but don't put yourself in a compromising position.
So I'll end with a pretty common question, but I want to add a little twist to it. So I want to know where you see yourself in the next 5 years, but I also want to know what are some of the things you think you need to improve on if you want to get there?
So in the next 5 years, I think ideally the next 5 years, I'd like to be racing full time in the Cup Series. I feel like if I can run some ARCA and truck races the next 2 years or so, and then 2 years in Xfinity, that puts me 5 years into the Cup Series. I'll be 24 years old, 24 years old by then. So ideally that's the goal, to be in the Cup Series. And I think a lot of it is improving myself as a driver, of course, is really important. And I think that for me right now, I think that just comes with more experience and more driving time, where I can go out there and go run some more races and then really focus on what I need to improve on as a driver. And I think I'll be able to focus more on that once I'm back in the car and back working with the team and all of that again. And I also think a big part of it to be there is putting myself in the right positions, putting myself in the right cars, and my whole team of people, from my manager, Jimmy Button, who's an ex-Supercross racer who helps me with a bunch of sponsorship stuff, my dad, my family, all the people around me that are helping manage me. And we're trying to put myself in the best situation where I can go out and win cars, go and show my talent. And if I can do that for the next 4 years and be in the best cars possible, go out, win races, I think that's what it's going to take to be there in the next 5 years racing in the Cup Series.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how your career goes and how your 2020 season goes, and really impressed a lot of us in 2019. So I thank you for coming on the show, and I hope you guys are staying safe through all this, and hopefully we're back to the racetrack pretty soon.
Yes, for sure. I'm definitely looking forward to getting back to racetrack like I know all of us are. And yeah, thanks for having me on the show. And if you guys want to follow me on social media and just kind of keep an update of what I'm doing, and hopefully we'll have some racing plans for later this year, and all of that will be on my Instagram and Twitter. And you guys can find me pretty easily, just Jagger Jones, basically on there. We'll get you right to my stuff. And yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
We want to thank Jagger Jones for coming on our show. It's not too often you get the grandson of an Indy 500 winner to be on your show. And pretty cool when you get to be surrounded by people like, of course, his grandfather, Parnelli, but also getting to work with 7-time Jimmy Johnson there. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from what Jagger had to say about, the problems that we're kind of having with iRacing and some of the personal conduct stuff. Kind of comes down to that you really have to work hard to separate your personal from your professional life. And a couple of drivers over the winter and over the spring here during the pandemic have kind of struggled to do that. But for someone like Jones, who grew up in this industry, not really anything new for him to have to try to adapt and carry himself in a certain way. So I found that very interesting, and I want to thank him once again for coming on our program. Let's take a look at what's on the radar this week. And we start off with tomorrow night on the All-American Speedway Facebook. We will have the NASCAR weekly racing from May 4th of 2019, and that's at 7 p.m. Pacific on the All-American Speedway Facebook. Looking forward to presenting that one. Some crazy battling in the limited modified class, a dual twin main event bill in that one, so looking forward to presenting that one. And then on Thursday, the final round of the Junior Late Model Esports Series, and they're going to be at Gateway, of all places. So something really unique there. They're going to be at Gateway, and that's coming up on Thursday, May 7th, 3:30 p.m. Pacific on GSRC on YouTube and Facebook. That's where you can find it. And again, all the racing news that we're posting all the time available at shorttracklive.com. And if you miss an episode of Blakesley Sports Media Live, remember that we post our episodes on iTunes and all the podcasting platforms. We're also on Facebook and on YouTube, so you never have to miss an episode of Blakesley Sports Media Live. I want to thank you all for tuning in. There are a lot of things in the works and a lot of details that aren't finalized for things in the next couple of weeks. So not a lot of detail to go in there. We know Placerville is going to have a big open test this weekend, so we invite you to check that out, and we'll see you at the races.